And then the sanctuary that exists was built in the early 70s. The church at its peak had close to 5,000 total members, but 2,700, as I understand it, were residential. The church now has 272 resident members, and as of January a year ago, was averaging around 90 in attendance. And our goal is to rebuild a vibrant, healthy church that will not be a mega church, but a neighborhood church to serve in many different capacities, both providing a place of worship, but to be the center of a live, work, and pray type of community. And so that's the vision, and we're excited to see it continue to develop. So thank you, Woody, and thank you everyone for hosting us this evening.
So can y'all see my screen now? It says the church at Wieuca redevelopment.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, finally. Sorry about that. So again, I'm Woody Galloway with Galloway Law Group. I'm helping the church and Greenstone through the zoning process. And we've been working for quite some time in going forward with that. The church's property is composed of 12.5 acres. If y'all can see my screen, you can see the outline of the church's property. As Barry just discussed, the church has gone through a lot of transition over the years, from being a very large church to being an aging church with the number of members decreasing to the point where it's very, very small, but Barry's come on board and is going to build it back. But in the process, the church has finally had to confront the fact that they need to do something about the site. And they've got, the facilities are much bigger than they need, and they need to right size the facilities to meet the needs of their congregation, both now and for the next 50 years. But they foresee that as being a much smaller congregation than the facilities that are on the site now would support. And the facilities are aging as well. So there's a need for maintenance on a lot of the facilities, and that costs a lot of money. And so they had to face the question of whether to stay on site or to go to a different site. After a lot of deliberation and consideration, they wanted to stay at this site, as Barry indicated, to be a neighborhood church that would serve the needs of the community on a much smaller level. But in order to do that, they do need to sell portions of their property, and that's what we are here to talk about tonight. This is a slide that shows the future land use plan for this area of the city of Atlanta. You'll note that the red is high density commercial, and the yellow is the church's property, and that is low density residential. It was done that way on purpose because at the time this was adopted, and also when the SBI was adopted, there were plenty of rumors at the time that the property would need to be redeveloped, or there was a need for some type of redevelopment, and they wanted the church to have to go back through the process to get that done. And so that's the process that we are in now. The church went through this exhaustive process and selected Greenstone. Harvey Rudy is here with me tonight, and he is with Greenstone. But we're basically looking at the site in three different components. The southern end is what Greenstone is proposing to redevelop. The middle 6.5 plus acres is where the church would like to retain that property. The steeple is located here. This is the main sanctuary building. So the idea is to renovate the existing sanctuary building and other buildings to accommodate the needs immediately. And then, as you'll see on the site plan in a minute, they are looking into the future at future needs and have proposed other buildings in the on the site to accommodate their needs. The northern end is proposed to be residential, and that would provide the transition from the more intense commercial uses at the corner to the institutional uses in the middle to the residential uses to the north. So this next slide is a depiction of the proposed site plan. And as I indicated, the corner is proposed to be a higher density development that would be comprised of an office building that would be located at the corner. This would sit on top of a parking deck podium, and that would serve both the office and the proposed residential apartment development, which would be located here. Both of these buildings are proposed to be 415 feet high. To give you a comparison, the adjacent building, the South Tower at 3630, is 440 feet tall. And then across Park Avenue is about 480 feet tall. So we're between those heights. We're lower than both the development to our east and the development to our west. So as I indicated, the church, the plan is to retain the sanctuary here, and then renovate this building, which is called the West Wing, to accommodate the existing day school that exists on the southern end of the property, and then have the gym, which is located here, and then additional buildings. These may be the church is just starting the actual architectural work. They've hired an architect to handle that and work with them on it, to do pricing and do all the renovation studies and all of that type thing. And so these may be brand new structures, or they may be renovated structures, and these may be built over the course of a long period of time. This is a 50-year plan for the church, so it's not something that's going to happen immediately, but they want to plan out into the future. And as a part of that, they're losing a lot of parking spaces, so they need to replace some of those spaces, either under these facilities here, and this would allow for, the grade would allow for a one level parking structure underneath these facilities here, that would bring all of this up to grade of where the sanctuary is, and do it that way, or add additional parking on top of the church's parking deck. They own the fee interest, they own the property interest, and they own the air rights, but they don't have rights to use the parking in this parking deck during the week. So they have the right on the weekend, but there are many events that occur during the week, and parking that's needed for the daycare and for events that happen during the week. So they need to replace some parking. We're just not sure where at this moment. And then to the north, the idea is to transition both from a height and intensity standpoint to the residential uses to the north. The darker buildings are townhome buildings. So these would be townhouses that and Toll Brothers Residential was selected for development of the northern end of the property. And they're proposing 18 single family houses along the northern edge of the development, and then 39 townhomes, which are depicted here in the darker shade. One of the things that the church wanted and Toll wanted was to have a good bit of green space associated with this development. And you'll see there's a pocket park here that would be utilized by the residents as well as the church. It's not going to be gated or anything, so it's actually open. And in fact, one of the things that we're proposing to do is have a pedestrian way that would allow someone to go from Wieuca through the property to Peachtree Dunwoody. And I think that's going to be something that would serve the community very well. As far as access, know that transportation is a big topic of discussion. Obviously, we got the new roundabout. This development plan reflects the new proposed roundabout design. We are currently have filed our request for a development of regional impact analysis of this site. It qualifies based on the size of the development to have to go through that process. So our study will be completed and submitted to ARC and Greta for review. We've had some initial meetings with them, but they will review the traffic study once it's prepared and then come back with their recommendations. But one thing this site does have is a great deal of access along Peachtree Dunwoody. This is site driveway A. It exists today. It provides access to the parking deck and would provide access to the residential. We will need to do some kind of restriction, and we'll work with the city and with you to determine what that should be. But we don't want to encourage cut-through traffic through this residential neighborhood. This will be very high-end neighborhood, and we don't want to have a lot of cars going through it. At the same time, that will provide a great access point to Peachtree Dunwoody. Site driveway B is actually off our site. It's on 3630. So this is 3630 Tower, where the office building and the Ritz residences are. That access is there today, and it is subject to an easement that benefits the church property. Then we have site driveway C off of Peachtree, and this is the entrance to the 3630. And as y'all probably know, there's also an access point in this area here to go into the church property. That access will stay, and that is the subject of the access easement as well. Rounding the corner to come up to Wieuca, we are proposing a right-in, right-out driveway in this location here. This is the approximate location of an existing little eyebrow kind of driveway today. That would provide direct access into and out of the parking deck under these buildings, which would be probably the main access point from anybody that's coming from the south to be able to turn right into the site here and go directly in if they are, a resident or going to an office in these buildings. The next driveway is driveway D. This driveway is an existing driveway today. Right now, it's one way. We're proposing to make this a two-way drive. And the concept there is that this would be another major access point and the major access point if you're coming to the site from Georgia 400. We want to make that access as easy as possible. Right now, there's an access point to the church that's located here. That was anticipated to be open and the main access point when the roundabout was designed. We are proposing to close that though, and make this the main access point. That'll give additional stacking room for cars as they want to turn left into the driveway. It also gets the conflict point further away from the roundabout, making it basically halfway between Peachtree and the roundabout, which is pretty much ideal. Further to the north, there's also site driveway E, which is an existing driveway right now. It probably is a little bit further south currently. This would be located along the northern edge, and it would continue to provide access. There are easements that exist that benefit 3630 South Tower as well as North Tower and the residences that that driveway benefits. I think that unless you're coming from north along Wieuca, the use of that driveway would be very limited, but it's important, especially for the residences. So that's that. As far as a timeline, we filed for the June cycle of hearings with the rezoning process. It is a DRI, so it does take additional time. And so we won't get the DRI back until mid-August, which means that—
Woody, would you define DRI, please?
Okay, sorry. DRI is a development of regional impact. And for developments that are large enough and meet the criteria through in the zoning process or in the development process, you have to do a traffic study that meets the guidelines for the Atlanta Regional Commission and the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority. And both of those entities review the traffic study and come back with their recommendations as to any traffic improvements that are required or necessary as a result of the proposed development. And we won't get that study back or those comments back until mid-August. And so we're targeting a September 2 or 9 ZRB hearing, and September 27 is when we'll start the city council committee process, and then it would go to city council October 4th for a decision if we hold to this schedule.
Woody, it would have to be a December 9th CRB hearing because the NPU does not meet until the 7th.
Okay. And that is certainly fine. So I want to go back to the site plan and then field questions. But what we've tried to do thus far is we started very early in looking at this proposed development, tried to anticipate different things, made a lot of modifications to the original plans prior to even filing. But we've worked and had discussions with many of you that are on this call tonight, and trying to make modifications. We're aware of issues that the community wants to have addressed, and we're certainly willing to sit and listen to those and to try to do our best to accommodate any changes that we need to make to the development. So with that, Jim, if it's all right, let's open it up for questions.
Thank you, Woody. I want to tell everybody that we appreciate Woody taking the time to be here. And to emphasize to you, there are about 30 of us on this call, or 35. So let's try to keep our comments short if we can, and not duplicative. So whoever wants to go first. Elizabeth, you started before the meeting. You want to keep going a little bit? You're muted. You're muted.
I have a question.
No, she just asked for somebody.
Okay. About approximately how many, I'm Betty Londrigan. I live at 9 Conifer.
There I am. Okay. I'm there. Is that okay? Okay, I've been here for 33 years. I've been on the zoning review board. I've been downtown looking at all the plans that have gone on before all the buildings came in. So it's not like I know Sally, it's not like I'm not informed with all this kind of thing. One of the things I'm pleased about is I do think the Wieuca Road Baptist Church is a wonderful church. As a matter of fact, it's got some of the best acoustics in Atlanta of any church. And so they can do so much when it comes to the arts and all that kind of thing. I will tell you this, the whole idea of a roundabout taking up that sweet area that took the North Buckhead Civic Association and myself and several other people $5,000 to stop that big apartment building going in 10 feet behind my house. And to put in a small roundabout will not work. The only roundabouts that work is if they're very, very large. And that means you have to give up, I call them parkettes, but that beautiful park there that took a lot of people to build, and they're very interested in it. And it also protects, it's like the entryway, and we talked about this 10 years ago. It's like the entryway to North Buckhead is on the Wieuca Road, Phipps Boulevard, and that one park. And that very, very much upsets me.
Elizabeth, before you go any further, this is Sally Silver. I am going to suggest that you get with Nick Parker. There has been a committee along with myself working on that park. It has a complete redesign. It's fabulous. The roundabout is not going to be small. It's going to be a 2-lane roundabout, and we will be happy to fill you in on all of that on a meeting or emails or whatever separate.
You're not
from this
talking about what
discussion.
I want to talk about. I don't think the roundabout works very well.
Well, that's not what we're discussing tonight. That's what I'm saying. We need to talk about the development.
The development also has to do with traffic, and it has to do with the number of people that are going to be added to our neighborhood on a very critical area, which is Wieuca Road and Peachtree Road. And we need to be able to see how that's going to work. And this is not doing that. The fact of the matter is we're going to have a lot more people in that particular area. And, you know, just emotionally, people get upset when there's too much traffic. They get upset. And so now we're going to do a huge new densification of that. And it could be a real problem. What I would like to see, and we've talked about this in North Buckhead, is having over bridges that connect roads. I've seen this in England. I've seen this in Paris, where they have over bridges that go over roads so that people can get from point A to point B. We're going to have a whole lot of people being very angry, trying to make rights and lefts. We've seen all kinds of accidents happen, and nothing's being done about that. I don't mind densifying. I just mind traffic and people being hurt. And that's the problem, because it's right there. We've seen it happen with all the people on the Lenox Road area going towards 400, and the craziness that's happened. It makes people crazy. I'm a psychologist. People densification makes people crazy. And if we do not allow for better things. Now, I love the idea of the walkway going all the way to Peachtree Dunwoody Road. I think that's wonderful. But Sally, I'm the one who proposed to Lee and you that we do the walking trail around 400 before it even occurred, and y'all didn't pay attention to me. It's not like, I'm sorry, but it doesn't make sense. And,
well, Elizabeth, let me meet with you separately. We are on the roundabout. We are doing raised crosswalks with pedestrian activated lights and a number of safety measures. I think that there's some history you need to be updated on, but we very much welcome your comments and concerns about pedestrians and traffic, because that is something that we're all concerned with. But I will happily get with you and discuss the roundabout in the park, and the fact that the Department of Transportation for the City of Atlanta has to approve the final design. So it will be well thought out, and public safety is the foremost on their mind at this point.
All right,
that's what I'm interested in.
Elizabeth,
Safety,
stop a minute. Elizabeth, please. We're getting the developers will give us a traffic study, which will quantify much of what you're talking about. Let's go on to the next person because we could be here 4 hours, if you don't mind. And meet with Sally. She's offered and do that.
All right.
Steve Larkin, you got anything?
No, I think it's conceptually looked like it's a benefiting idea for all parties. And, traffic is always a concern. And I'm sure they'll go through all the, utility studies and all that to make sure that won't have a big detention pond in the middle of the green space. But, we can live with it. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Well,
Can I ask a question? I just want to ask a question. How many people will be involved, will be input in the tower, the commercial space, and in the apartments?
Who is asking this question, please?
It's Betty Londergan. I own a property at 9 Conifer Circle. Here I am.
Yeah, no, I got your name.
If
I don't
if
know
I
that we
might,
know that-
speak
I
up,
don't know that we know that number.
yeah,
Yeah.
Jim,
Well, I'm
if
sure you can extrapolate.
if you would give me just a little bit of, and I apologize for inserting myself, but I just wanted to reassure everybody on this call that we are in discussion. And when I say we, I live in this neighborhood too. We are in discussion with this developer as well as the church.
Mhm.
We all feel it very important that the church remain, not only because it's a fabulous church and the people are really great and we count them as part of our community, but it also draws a line in the sand between commercial development.
Okay,
and
that's a
single
nice
family.
pivot. It's a nice pivot. but
So
I
we
actually
are in
want to ask you a
conversation.
question.
Nothing
Everything
has
else is
been
built up.
decided.
Okay, if this is developed as per the speculate that we're being asked to evaluate, that's a pretty simple question. How many people?
You got to assume a lot of different factors. But I think one of the key components, and this is something that's key to a lot of your leadership interest, and that is parking spaces. So,
No, I'm asking how many people
well,
would
but
be
that's how
working there and living there?
I'm going to try to get there
Okay.
because generally, first of all, as it relates to parking, we're complying with bucket overlay, which is a reduced number. But in terms of parking spaces, we're talking about approximately 2,000 parking spaces that are associated with commercial development. So that gives you an idea. If you extrapolate from that, you're going to have some people that will get there by other means. But that's how many parking spaces that we are planning on. And we can try to get an estimate based on your question and have it ready next time.
Mhm.
Architects are pretty good about that in terms of density of people versus square footage. So we try to do that.
And to that end,
Corollary to that, I just wanted to ask one more question. How far back? I know that like the Huntley is right on Phipps, right about 2 feet off of Phipps Boulevard. And I'm wondering what the setback from Wieuca would be for your building and for because it looks like particularly the apartments are right directly on Wieuca, like 3 feet back.
Well, it's a little deceiving because there's the streetscape itself makes up about 25 feet from back of curb before there are any improvements for either the office building or the multifamily building.
Mhm.
So there's about 25 feet there that you're going to have streetscape, which is comprised of the sidewalk, the grass strip, and then landscape strips. So you're going to have an area about 25 feet there between any part of the front of the structure to the edge of curb.
Okay, thank you.
Richard Johnson. You're muted.
No, I'm not.
How do you raise
I
your
was just
hand?
typing a chat.
Raise your hand.
But
Oh.
just a couple of, and I live in Longleaf subdivision. And a couple of observations or questions. There was a traffic study done when the roundabout was being considered, correct? So anybody that might know, Sally,
Sally?
somebody?
Yes, there was. And
Okay,
this application has also been under the auspices of the Transportation Department, specifically with the engineers that are working on the roundabout.
Okay, so does
the
that
bonus
specific study get
is
pulled
mentioned.
out and reviewed to adjust it separate from the study being done that's by the firm? I presume the developer retains the firm that's doing this traffic study for this development. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So then the study that was done for the roundabout, do we go back to that firm and have them review this development and say, okay, with respect to this development, adjust your study and update it so that we can now take, which I found to be very controversial at the time, but I'm not going to get into all that, but so that we can see two different firms' perspective. The firm that did the roundabout study, take into account this development that's proposed and have them produce a result. And maybe the NBCA considers commissioning some of this.
They are already in the process of doing that. As a matter
Okay.
of fact, the roundabout expert used by Georgia DOT is also analyzing this.
Great.
And all of those numbers will be reviewed in the traffic plan. The
they
thing to
get-
remember at this point, I really want to underline this. Nothing has been decided.
No,
This
I
is a
understand that.
conversation and we need to hear your concerns and ideas. But I have spent the past 4 years of my life on that roundabout, and I'm not about to screw it up at this point.
Well, I'm not trying to get into a new conversation
Richard, what was
about
your
the
second
roundabout.
point?
My second point is with respect to the apartment tower. And I know we're just at the infant stages of this whole process, but has there been consideration to whether or not, or their thoughts as to whether or not even another set of apartments in a fairly dense apartment area is warranted? What does the NBCA membership feel about that addition? And address that as opposed to what I'm hearing so far is, I guess I'm the first comment to make about the inclusion of an apartment complex.
I will tell you, Richard, that the whole point of this is to get this sort of feedback to us. So
Yes.
thank
We are riddled with crime in this area, with traffic, with the inability of the city to address a lot of these issues. And here we come with yet another development. And I know you could argue apples and oranges and one doesn't relate to the other, and we can't halt development because the city can't get its act together and all these different issues. But as a resident, and a long-term resident, I'm kind of a little fed up with the having to look the other way for things like this under the promise that we have to depend on studies like what is probably going to be forthcoming, and just say, okay, well, the comprehensive land use plan in this example has low density residential. And that was a long fought battle back when it was adopted to help stop the penetration in the North Buckhead residential areas of developments like this.
Good point.
Yeah,
So I'm throwing up on you with a lot of issues because this is kind of coming at us fast, and I know we're in the early stage, but I would just hope that the NBCA might reach to its membership to really poll well the thoughts and try to educate the membership at large, and even ask for extra funding if they wanted to pursue any separate professionally retained studies to complement what's clearly going to be retained by the developer, or perhaps
Richard,
by
you'll be
governing
glad to
bodies.
know I noted your name by that comment of extra money.
You can note my name.
I'd be right there to help contribute if it made sense.
Me
Hey,
too.
Fred Glassman, you're next, and you're
I'm-
muted.
Is this a
I'm
Fred,
done.
you're muted.
Finance meeting?
Oh, good. Question again about traffic. That seems to be raised every time we have these meetings. So that traffic study, will that be shared with the traffic study from the roundabout so they get together and then maybe both will have to make revisions?
Yes, sir. Just so that y'all understand the process, in the DRI process, it brings together a lot of different elements of government, whether it's the DOT, that's Georgia DOT. You got Georgia DOT that'll come in and have comments. You have MARTA, you have the city's DOT. You also have, of course, our traffic folks. The CID also has a seat at the table and has been very instrumental, obviously, in the roundabout and other improvements. You've got a lot of different groups that come together, but one of the things that has already occurred is that all of those different groups have been at the table and have looked at this specific site and said, okay, these are the intersections that need to be studied. And these are the things that you need to look at. And one of those obviously is the impact on the roundabout, but also the other intersections in the immediate area. And then under the criteria that are established for these type studies, Kimberly Horn, which is our transportation engineer, will go out and do that study, present it as a formal paper, which is available because it's a publicly filed document, and we'll present that. Then it'll be reviewed by each of those various parties for consistency and accuracy and all of those things, and they have input. And then there will be suggested changes and improvements that they will suggest be made as a result of whatever the traffic generated by the site, however that comes back.
Woody?
This is Robert Patterson. Let me just address the point that Fred brought up about NBCA will set up on our website a page. Don't go there yet. It's not there yet, but we'll have a web page that compiles all the various studies that that are presented to us, such as this traffic study, things from the roundabout, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be a common source of information. You'd be able to download these various documents from the NBCA website. And Fred, Richard, if we commission any studies of our own, those would be on there too, of course. Okay.
John Patrick, thank you, Robert. John Patrick, you're muted. There you go.
The only thing I was kind of wondering about is I know that with office space, it's kind of a variable there with how many people are going to be. But I do with Betty and some of the other ones, I think it was, that were asking about what the number of apartments preliminary on the first rendering. How many apartments were they thinking about?
400.
400.
And obviously the number of people would be dependent on, the number of bedrooms, that kind of thing. This is geared to be a very high-end product, obviously with the high-rise and given the placement, be very high-end. It also is at least targeted towards empty nester type folks. So that's the initial take on it, but there's nothing that restricts it other than the size of bedrooms.
Specifically this.
All right, thank you.
Cam? You're muted, Cam.
How
Thanks,
did-
Jim. Woody, I got a question for you. If you go back onto the screen with the traffic driveways,
Sure. Yes.
yeah,
Do you see it now?
yes. So I was thinking, like, why wouldn't you have another driveway where T5 and T6 is located so that it would provide traffic relief from the future church expansion and their entire facility there? Because otherwise they're driving through the residential north side, or they gotta come down and
Much better eyes.
deal with the apartments and the office.
I can speak to that. The engineers who have studied this roundabout and all of the possible development over the past 4 years have precluded that driveway. We, at one time, the church actually requested a driveway there and it was turned down because it will not function well with the capability of the roundabout.
Oh, because it would pour too much traffic into the roundabout for the roundabout to be moving smoothly. Is that what it is?
No, you idiot.
Something like that, yes.
Thanks, Cam. Barry, you're muted. Barry, you're muted. Oh, Bubby. Bub J.
Sounds like the usual.
400 apartments, multiple townhomes.
Who's speaking?
No one.
Oh, somebody was B-U-B-B-E-J. Who is it? Well, you're muted. Unmute.
I'm trying to, okay, I did not have my hand up, but I do have a question. How does this traffic flow affect your day school? Because I see now that cars are, lined up on Phipps in the afternoon. I don't know if there's any particular rules in terms of how that traffic flows in terms of the education part. But it is you better check it out. And I'm Jan Epstein. I live in Park Avenue.
So that is
So it
a
looks like
very,
the sanctuary and the gym and that back parking lot are going to stay as property of
yes, it will. And so access to the day school will actually be more consistent and better. Because right now you've got the day school is in an old building that's over here. It has access at off of Peachtree. It also has a eyebrow access off of Wieuca here. And then there's access off of the drive that's next to the sanctuary, and you go through the buildings to get to the day school.
We
So
got a great
that's,
picture of your preacher up there.
what's that?
I think we have a great picture of your preacher up there. We're not looking at the map you're referring to.
Now there's a map.
I'm looking at the map.
It's just hard to read because it's small.
I don't know what happened to my computer. Well, that's all right. Then let's keep going.
Okay, sorry. The anticipated new location for the day school is in this area here. If y'all can see my cursor, it's the existing west wing that's actually north of the sanctuary. That building, we're anticipating that would be renovated and that would serve as the new day school, which, as you can see, would get it much further away from any of the roads that are adjacent to the site. So you'd have a lot of stacking distance all from all directions. And this driveway would be both in and out. And we have not worked through all the logistics of that. That's one of the things that the architect will do as part of the planning for the new improvements. If there is a parking deck under this under all of these buildings, that will provide a very, very easy drop off and pickup under cover. But that is a very important element of all of this, and it will be taken care of, but it will be taken care of in an area that's further away from the street than it is now.
What is the enrollment currently? Do you know?
Barry, you're going to have to answer that. I don't know the current enrollment. It's 112 or something like that.
You know, thank you. I'm not sure exactly of the current enrollment because it went down a little, obviously, through the pandemic and now is back up. There is one figure I saw that was around 145. It may be that the average attendance has been around 112, but it's in that general range.
Okay, thank you.
Rebecca King, you're muted.
Thank you, but I didn't have anything to say. I didn't have my hand up. I'm just listening.
Oh, okay, sorry. Sally, you're in there when you needed.
Nick has a question.
I have a question. I have my hand up. I'm
Wait, I'm just going through all the pictures. Who's speaking now?
This is Nick.
Nick Napor.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm a longtime resident in the area. I live on Haven Oaks Court, and I've been there for 20 years, 21 years, and I've been in Atlanta for 40 years. So I am not an anti-development person, and I've had the pleasure of looking at that church steeple for 21 years, and I have a lot of respect for the church, and I understand what their needs are. However, I will say what a lot of people may not want to say. It seems to me that this development that's being proposed is trying to pack an awful lot of things into an awful small piece of property. And none of it really benefits the people that live there. However, we do support the church and understand the church's needs. I don't understand why there has to be a walkthrough from Wieuca to Peachtree Dunwoody, quite frankly. It's walking to other residential homes. I don't see why we have to try to rezone R3 and have more industrial or commercial type housing placed in an area where we bought our properties based on R3 residences surrounding us. And the encroachment into that really does nothing to, in my opinion, enhance the property values and our way of life. And so I oppose the rezoning. I do not oppose if the church wants to sell their land and build towers, if the city allows them to do it, what's currently zoned. But I do want to say that I do not agree with the rezoning of R3 land.
Let me back up for a minute, if I can, Nick, and just show you. So this, can you see a screen now?
Oh, I see it. Yeah, I see it well,
Okay.
yes.
So the outline of this is the outline of the church property. This is all zoned SBI 12 sub-area 3. It's not zoned R3. There is one lot here that is zoned R3. And that used to be owned by the church, but it is not currently in the application. But this is all SBI 12 sub-area 3, which is a different classification than R3.
Okay.
Woody, this is Gil Rapley. If you would just go back to that, just to make sure.
Gil, turn your volume up.
Hold on. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you take the Peachtree Dunwoody side of this, the property, and you have the line there, yeah, just your cursor zone. That property is SPI, correct?
All of this one lot is R3.
Okay, so that one is an R3. The next one is a R3 that has the Bradley Group, and then the next one is an R3, which is Elizabeth Baird, and then the backside of Haven Oaks Court. So with that, did I describe those plots right?
Yes, sir.
So the third one down from Haven Oaks, the request to rezone that lot to a SPI. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, and I think that is a big concern of the people on the north side of the step down of the R3s, and all of a sudden what was a single family home now has adjacent, what is that, about 10 or 12 single family homes adjacent to that property.
That's correct.
The
Now,
big concern of the north side, and I would think the same on the Wieuca side, but I think Nick and the people in Haven Oaks are referring to what Nick just talked about.
That's correct.
well, and that's something that we have had discussions about, and I think some of the leadership has brought to our attention, and something that we will continue to discuss is how the single family transition happens adjacent to the property to the north. One of the things that we started this process with was an admonition that the northern edge needed to be single family. And so that is what we have proposed. Something that we do have on this end, we do have a townhouse building here. Gil, you brought to our attention, and we have had discussions about what could be done there. But those are things that we could certainly discuss as we go down the road on this development. But in a general sense, this is all except for that one lot is SBI 12 subarea 3.
And just kind of for the record of this public call, Woody and I and a few others did discuss what we just talked about. So I appreciate you, Woody, that we can continue to have good dialogue about what is best for both the neighbor and the development of this property.
Anybody else have any issues that ought to be discussed? I've skipped a bunch of people, but who else had? Nick, you have something else? I see your hand is up.
Well, no, I guess it was up from before. No, I think Gil pretty much discussed what part of my issues are. I mean, I think also there should be some dialogue about what's going on with the Ritz, because there was an article today about how the Ritz Condominium Association doesn't want this tower going up, which is also in the same vicinity there, with an issue with parking and traffic. And we haven't even brought that into this discussion here. That's another tower in addition to what these developers want to do. And so that's added density that nobody's mentioning on this call. And that's right there. It's right there. And what impact does that have on this development that we're talking about right now?
Fair question.
I mean, Woody, do you want to address that for us? Because we're talking
sure.
about another tower that's also being contested by, my understanding, the Ritz Condominium Association people. I just read the article today.
Well, and there are things about that article that are incorrect.
Okay.
But some of some of it is. So just there you go. Okay. So just to give you a high level view of that, 3630 development is comprised of really the south tower, which is located here. If y'all can see my cursor, that's where the Ritz townhome or the Ritz residences are, and the office building is that exists today. This is the parking deck that serves primarily the Ritz residences. And then this area on the left side is the building pad for what is referred to as the North Tower site. So that site has been proposed for a Ritz hotel with residences in the Ritz hotel. They proceeded through discussions with, because they were primarily already zoned, they really had to go through the SAP process in the city. And they went through that process with a few hills and valleys that Ms. Silver can add to as she wants to. But there were some issues there. And one of the issues was there are private covenants and restrictions that bound the entire development. And one of those is a requirement that the North Tower provide a sufficient amount of parking to deal with their use. North Tower owners were able to convince the condo association that they should support the request, and they have done so. To date, they have not been able to convince the office owner they should support the request. And that's kind of the article that came out today was reflective of the fact that when the SAP for the Ritz hotel, when that was approved by the city, the condo association, and I use that term as the master association for the whole thing, filed an appeal. And that was based on according to the owners of the office that filed the appeal, it was based on the vote by percentage of who could vote. And they filed an appeal. That appeal was pending last week. It was delayed. We can go into infinite detail. It's very complicated. They're in the midst of trying to work that out. But regardless of whatever happens there, what we have to do is anticipate their traffic in our traffic study and their impact on our site in our traffic study. And we have had to do that. And that is a part of everything that we do, is that we have to anticipate other developments in the surrounding area, existing traffic. And in COVID times, you have to take, say you go back to 2019 and you take the trip generation or the trip rates then, and then you have to gross it up to mimic what it would be today, because obviously today you don't have the same level of traffic as you did pre-pandemic.
I wanted to mention in there that when Woody talked about the already approved zoning, in 2005, that building pad was approved for a higher building and a different use. Therefore, the roundabout and the proposed development we are talking about tonight all have anticipated if that zoning moved forward.
I'll say too, in the article this morning, one point was incorrect, that their development, the Ritz development, took into account parking that would be on our site, the church site, and that's incorrect. So there are no parking provisions for the Ritz in our development. That's not a part of our zoning.
Harvey, is Greenstone doing the development both of the towers and of the residential on the north end? You all have both developments, is that correct?
We are not doing the Ritz. No.
Oh, no, this is back to the
No.
way you.
Gil, the northern end is under contract with Toll Brothers Residential.
Okay.
And the southern end is the end where Greenstone is doing the office tower. Crescent is doing the residential tower on the south end, but Greenstone is acting as the master development of the site, developer for the site.
All right. Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
All right, what else? Who else has something that they wish clarification on or anything?
Yes, I have my hand up.
Okay, who is
This is Elizabeth Bibby
Thank you.
at the top of the screen. And I would like to just throw out a very different perspective on this development than Nick expressed. I'd love to see that pedestrian path remain in the top section so that people can get from the roundabout directly through to Peachtree Dunwoody. I would go to events at Nancy Creek Park if I could walk through there instead of having to walk all the way around. And I will not drive that short distance because that just adds to the traffic and all the traffic problems that we have. And we need to encourage people to walk. So I really would like to see that stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody has a hand up, I saw.
Hi, my name is.
I will tell you that on the 19th of July, we will have another of these meetings. Just so you know, Lisa, do you have a comment or two?
I do. My name is actually Darden Brown. I have a different account. My apologies. I was looking for some clarification on the commercial, what I presume all the commercial development will be in that tower on the south end of the complex. And I was just looking for a little clarification on what exactly that was going to look like, whether that's, commercial as in office buildings or commercial as in retail or something of that nature.
It's primarily office. There will be some ground floor ancillary uses, such as ground floor retail as required by code. So,
coffee shop sort of thing.
Right.
Yes.
12,500 square feet of the total 512,000 square feet. So it's a very small part would be retail of one type or another, the ancillary to the office building use.
I see. And is that covered by, I know zoning has come up a lot. Does that require a separate zoning from the rest of the residential zoning?
No, it does not. So again, to sort of break this down on a high level, what we're asking for right now is this is all sub area 12. It is SBI 12, excuse me, except for this one piece right here. And all of it right now is sub area 3. We're asking for sub area 1 for the whole piece, or that's how we filed the application. But we realized in our preliminary discussions that we would likely transition at some point from sub area 1, which allows a much higher density and a much higher height. We would transition to sub area 2 and 3, which allow a decreasing amount of height, and the uses would be all residential. So sub area 3 would be a density of 0.4, which is the same density as R3. So we're in discussions right now on where that line should be. So we'll that will be part of the overall discussion with the leadership of North Buckhead and with the NPU is where those lines should be as we go through this process.
Well, Robert Patterson, do you have anything to close with? We'll have another Zoom meeting, which you'll be informed of on the 19th at 6:30. I'd like to thank John Patrick for setting these things up. That's awfully nice of him. Anything else from anybody? Otherwise, we'll call it a night.
Yeah, I'll throw in a couple things that, and this is me speaking personally, not in any way officially for NBCA.
And this is Robert Patterson speaking.
So even though I'm president of NBCA, this is just me talking personally, and I've already communicated.
It's going to be
in the past.
recorded.
Can you hear me? Someone's.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. there's a lot of public investment that NBC in the roundabout and the landscaping in North Buckhead Park and all. It's not shown on this plan because I'm talking about the landscaping that would go along with the proposed new roundabout and the adjusted or the new North Buckhead Park. And that's of a lot of effort. North Buckhead Civic Association was invited into that. We've had a lot of input into what that landscaping would look like. We would certainly want that landscaping plan and to be understood by Kimley Horn and the other, whoever it is that's doing the landscaping plan for this project, and to make the two complementary so they all work together, because this could be a tremendous gateway to North Buckhead. It's going to, even just the roundabout's going to be a tremendous new gateway for North Buckhead. So we wouldn't want this to detract from it. Quite the opposite. We'd want it to enhance it. We've communicated some desire to see, as this residential at the north end projects into an R3 area and is across the street from R3, that it should have some type of setbacks that are reflective of that. So you don't feel like you've got townhouses coming right down to the sidewalk on one side of the street and R3 houses on the other side of that street. So that's another comment we've passed along. And in general, and we'll be very interested in this traffic study, I think my personal opinion is that the citizens of Atlanta and the federal government, the state government, everybody else has put billions into our MARTA system, into our arterial streets like Peachtree, Phipps Boulevard, major thoroughfares like Georgia 400. Commuters, as much as possible, should stay on those roads and not cut through North Buckhead. So we'll be scrutinizing this plan. I'll be scrutinizing this plan anyway, as to any more tweaks or changes we can suggest that make sure that commuters stay on those arterial boulevards and as much as possible don't cut through. There will be cut through. I'm not naive, but we certainly are not looking for more cut through as we add density. So those are three hot buttons that at least I have to inject into this review process.
And I would also just close with this, and as part of what we're going to do is take this information and stuff we've discussed, put it into the form of concessions, which we wish for the developer to consider, and then go forward from there. But anyway, the next meeting is the 19th, 6:30. Zoning announcement will be made. Thanks for everybody's attendance and thoughts and help.
Well, thank you,
Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we're done.
Good night.
Oh, no.
Good.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to end the meeting. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.